Welcome to the Wisdom Reclaim podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. I'm your host, Laila Sahar, Ayurvedic practitioner, coach, and intuitive, here to support you in awakening the healer within. In this podcast, we'll explore how to take responsibility for your life, trust your intuition, and rediscover the wisdom that's always been within you. Welcome to the Wisdom Reclaim podcast. My name is Laila Sahar, and I'm so excited to have you here today for a special episode. Today's episode is going to be a compilation of the most powerful moments so far of Wisdom Reclaimed. I thought it would be really fun to take clips of my favorite moments, of my favorite realizations, and just the incredible wisdom that all of my guests have shared on this podcast. And I thought it would be really cool to create one place where you can view it all. So in today's episode, you'll see clips from each of our recent episodes that were aired over the spring and summer. And I'm really excited to just share this with you all because I feel like there's been so much deep wisdom that's been shared from our guests' experiences and their paths and really their expertise in these different topics. And I didn't want you to miss anything. So for our first clip, you'll see my conversation with Alexandra Lia, and we are talking about the consciousness of water and how water really holds an important space in terms of our healing, particularly in how it holds our self-talk. She talks about how water has memory and how that now quantum science has really discovered that. In my own journey, water has played such a big role, is such a grand teacher, really. And it's something that we are only now beginning to dive into the depths of what this element really means. So check it out.
For me, the ocean, the waters, is a liquid library of everything that has ever existed because we are made up at least of 75% of water, but every cell is made up of 99% of water. We go back to the understanding that water is a carrier, is a medium, but also has the capacity to store information. Then I want to invite you all to consider the importance of self-talk. The waters within you are still, unless you've started to change it, unless you started to heal, are still carrying potential negative self-talk that we exposed it to when we were disconnected from our true selves, when we were carrying belief systems also of our ancestors who may have been devoid of self-love or self-care or the realization of who they truly are, or of harsh words exchanged with someone in a fight, in a quarrel, in an argument. And so for me, the water is also a teacher as to how we can not just restore, but regenerate the understanding of a system in its wholeness. The last years, there was such a high focus on sustainability, something to sustain itself. That's beautiful, but it's a closed system within itself. For me, the understanding of regenerative information, regenerative intelligence, regenerative leadership has to do with the understanding that everything and all is intraconnected. And if we take the seed aspect of the word regen, you go back to something that has been birthed. The Genesis means birthing. So it's the implementation of a framework that allows a system to continuously thrive as and within itself in a perpetual way, connected with all that is. And for me, the ocean is that leading force, is that leading teacher, the oceans, the waters. It's because no matter what they've been through, no matter what they've witnessed, they have a way of reorganizing, restructuring itself within its molecular cohesiveness to somehow always purify and birth itself anew while still remaining intact and connected with all that is.
Wow. We can end this right here. That was a beautiful, beautiful way to look at and experience water, right? And just what I'm feeling, water can really be one of our greatest teachers. And how much we can learn from this regenerative aspect of water, how much water actually impacts us. And when you were speaking about water and the self-talk, right? And how that affects us is actually the vibration, the sound that gets encoded in the water, right? That then we are holding on to if we're not undoing it. One of this teachers that I follow, Peter Crone, talks about how sound is literally what holds us back through the narratives, right? It's just sound. And yet it's like, it's those stories that we heard when we were younger, or the stories that we told ourselves about what we experienced when we were younger that gets then encoded. Next up, we have our conversation with Yusuf Misdaq, who is on the Sufi path, is also an artist, and we are talking about the art of remembrance. And in the Sufi path, that is known as the meditation practice of Dhikr. And we really dive into remembrance, what that means. And he also shares an incredible practice that you can do at home. He also talks about this time before incarnation, the time before we were humans, and the realm where we were just souls. And I think it's such an important and beautiful thing to remember that we are spiritual beings living a human experience and not the other way around. I think in our modern world, it is, this phrase is known, right? Yeah, we're a spiritual being having a human experience. But to really know it, to really embody it, to really live life from this place, literally will transform your entire life, your entire relationships, how you interact with the world, how you move through your experiences. And I really can't understate the importance and the power in this simple concept.
I think it's so interesting, especially in coming briefly back to Sufism, like what we call things is really important, what we label things as, because it tells you a lot about something. That when I was like 16 years old, I think I read the Quran for the first time. And I remember the chapters in English translation, the chapters really struck me. Like they were so interesting. Like one of them was called like the tablecloth. I'm like, wow, what's this about? It's very mysterious, right? And then another one was called the expansion, which was one of my favorite ones. Is the first one that I learned, I think. It's like these titles really appeal to me. And so the circular sort of sitting in circles and chanting, what do we do? Okay, everyone does chanting. It's a known thing, I guess, in various spiritual traditions. But we don't actually call it chanting. We call it Dhikr, which literally means remembrance. So we're remembering the earthly self, right? Because there is no time in the divine realm. So we were in a place before time existed. We were these timeless souls. And likewise, when we do the dancing, this sort of ecstatic dance that we do sometimes on certain celebration occasions, we used to do it every Friday, actually. Dance is not called dance. It's actually called hadra, which means presence. So dance is presence. Chanting is remembering. And it's just reframing everything for you in a beautiful way, like a nice book would. It's like, actually, things are not quite what they seem. The difficulty, like you said, it's good. You're meant to be going through this difficult stuff. It's actually in some ways it's your sustenance. It's the thing that your parents always say, you eat up, it's going to make you grow taller or whatever. The difficulty and the bad people or whatever that we meet that rub us the wrong way are the sustenance that's going to make our soul grow taller and grow stronger. I'm going on a rant, sorry.
It's beautiful. I love it. This is perfect. And just maybe to kind of wrap up our conversation, I love what you said about Dhikr, the remembrance, and the dance being a representation of presence. It's like, what can people do that are listening to this, just so we give them a little takeaway? Like, what is one thing that they can do to give them more presence in their life or a sense of remembrance, if there's anything you have for them?
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I'll start with the remembrance thing. Is this idea of we call it the day of promises. So it's something that's written in the Quran, but my teacher would actually expand greatly on it, which is an image, and maybe people could imagine this for themselves, where we were all at one point souls, like the entire history of humanity that ever existed, that ever will exist, that ever has existed. We were all souls in this plane of this timeless reality before we were here, and we were there together. And I think my teacher even said that sometimes when you see people and you look in their eyes and you have this crazy sense of deja vu that you've met this person before, even though you know you haven't, it's usually because there is some connection that you had with them on that day, right? On that moment. So there's that. But also, like, on a more practical level, I feel like so part of the Dhikr, the remembrance that we do, the chanting that we do, is basically sort of very mysterious names of God. One of them is really known to, and this is my new teacher, has been really teaching me a lot about this. One of them is really known to clear energy in a room or in your thoughts or in your mind. And it's really simple because it's very related to breathing, like my path, the Naqshbandi Sufi path, it focuses a lot on breathing. So the founder of the path is, he said, like, that if you lose, the path is built on breath, is what he said literally. And if you lose your breath, it's like you've lost yourself. So really the first principle of our specific Sufi tradition is what we call hosh dar dam, which is mind through breath. It's a Farsi term, or I guess Old Farsi, mind through breathing. So in other words, breath work, conscious breathing. So, and that's kind of mixed with the meditation, so with the chanting. So we recite this name of God, which is a very mysterious name, which is Hu. Yeah, Hu. But we recite it in this very, very slow way, or you could recite it any way you want. But I feel like sometimes that's a really helpful thing for me, that I've started to do a lot more recently, which is like when I'm feeling that maybe the room is feeling a bit tense that I'm in, or I'm feeling a bit tense, driving in the car, whatever it is, I will just do this, who's get it out. And I do it 2 or 3 times, and it really does. I mean, just like a cat's purr has its frequency that I think is healing, and I think scientists have proven that it heals bones and stuff. It's this crazy frequency. I think that frequency of who, just saying it, for me at least, it really is powerful. So I will find myself doing that, sometimes even higher pitched, sometimes lower pitched, just to clear out whatever might be there. So maybe that's a useful takeaway.
Dr. Farima Berenji. She is a Sufi master and also a scholar, and we're talking about the healing nature of dance. And she is a dancer and award-winning choreographer herself. And so she talks about the ritualistic aspect of dance, which is what makes it healing. And what I love most about this clip is that she talks about how dance is a prayer. Check it out.
Albert Einstein once says that the angels in this world are dancers. Dance is a way of not just healing, which we know dance is so powerful in healing, but it's in a way of we are the peacekeepers. If you allow dance to flourish, perhaps we can end world wars, because dance, there's so much beauty in this world, and we create that beauty through movement and through our dance. And if you allow us to bring that into the world, then the chaos will end. So dance is a powerful means of healing as well as unification. The movements that you see in dance, every single movement, starting with the fingers, are symbolic. And if you understand them and learn from them and use them in the right way and respect them, just like how you respect the elements, then you are creating a beautiful spiritual gathering, which is healing. Just like any other spiritual tradition, because dance was and still is considered a ritual, healing, it should be respected. So the dance that we see today in clubs or in parties, that is not healing. the dance that is being done respectfully and brought in the ancient way, using the right music, the right timing, the right atmosphere, that dance becomes healing. So I always say, as a dancer, my stage becomes my temple. What I wear is given to me by by the hand of God. My movement is a prayer. So if you believe that, then your dance becomes beautiful, comes healing, comes unification. Dance is a form of religion. Dance is a form of a prayer. Remember that every time you dance, and it changes you. It changes your atmosphere.
In the next part of our conversation, she talks about honoring the elements and how we can do that in our day-to-day lives. And as an Ayurvedic practitioner, I loved this part of our conversation because the elements are what makes up everything in our world. The elements is how we view the world in Ayurveda, how we view healing in Ayurveda as well, and how we fundamentally understand this realm. And I don't think that it's a surprise that, what she's sharing mirrors Ayurveda, and that we need to build a relationship with the elements. And if we're not doing that, then we can't really have a relationship with life.
The best thing you can do today is to honor those 4 elements. You do not have to do rituals. You do not have to do special prayers. Just respecting the elements as you live is what the ancients used to do. We don't need to create fancy places to do the worship. No. Just going outside and honoring them and thanking them, that is what they want to hear. It's that giving and receiving. So every day as you wake up, you thank the light. Every day you kiss the floor and you thank earth. Every day as you clean yourself and you drink that water, you thank the water. You become the elements, you feel the elements, you taste the elements, you hear and connect the elements. All your senses become those elements, and that is what we call worshiping, or the rituals of the elements, or worshiping the fire. You don't have to touch the fire. You don't have to jump over fire or dance around the fire. No, as long as you become them and they become you, that's inside of you. So as Rumi Hazrat Maulana has said, every person has a fire in them. They just has to light it up. And that light is basically understanding, what are they? Study them. Study how often do we realize that we don't know anything about the elements? We don't know their energy. We don't know their colors. We don't know what they're there for. We just see the material way, but we are not connected in the spiritual way with them. And it's important that your soul is connected with the spiritual part of these elements, including the fire. And that's what we talk about, the mention of worshiping elements or fire.
Next up, we have my dear friend Magik, who is a magician of all things. And we're talking about redefining the concept of failure. And I love this so much because so much of our upbringing and our schooling and how we move through the world is defined by our success and what success looks like. We're told from a young age, what that image is. And I know that on my path, and I know on Magik's path, a lot of it has been around redefining what success is and redefining what failure is. And often that what we think is a failure is actually a success. So listen in. Yeah, so I think we have such this image in our culture and society of what success looks like, and we are not realizing that this failure is closing a door to a life that's not meant for me and opening the door that is.
Right.
And it might take us a while to find that door for our own life that's meant for us and only us, right? As you're saying, it's it's not going to look like anybody else's. It's not going to feel like anybody else's. We can learn because, of course, there are going to be parts of everybody's journey that we can relate to, but that doesn't mean that we're going to be a carbon copy of somebody else, right? And that's I think what you're pointing to is a lot of what happens in spiritual spaces and people who are seeking. Sometimes what happens is that they are okay, I'm seeking, I don't know what it is exactly, but this person seems to have it figured out, so I'm just going to do exactly what they do.
Yeah.
And then it's like we outsource our power to other people.
Yes.
Right?
That is perfectly said. I love how you said that. We are 100% outsourcing our power to other people. And even to go back to what you're saying about a failure, it's like, this is where I get with these, words and labels and things. Like, because is it a failure? It's like, again, all of these things happen because it's ultimately leading us to where we need to be. So sometimes it means we stumbling and rolling down the hill, but then we stand up and we're like, oh, look, but I probably wouldn't have been here if I continued to walk down this path over here. I needed to fall and rumble and stumble and end up now where I'm at. So again, how will we learn if we don't stumble? How will we learn if we don't trip? How do we learn if we don't know? So we're just steady walking. We're tripping over a stone, but guess what? Now I know that I need to jump when I see a stone. That's how we learn, and I continue to learn and see how we can get blocked, especially people who have always been so very successful with their intellect. You've always gotten a lot of things from being the smart one, and you've always done it. So you've learned to rely on it so much that you become disconnected from the feels of things, and now you're like, well, is this my intuition? How do I know it's my intuition? And, and now we're still thinking about everything. And so it's just the remembrance of feel, and tapping back into that and trusting your feel and learning to trust your feel just as much as you trust your mind, and again, that's the practice.
Or even more than you trust your mind. That's the real magic, right?
Yep.
And it's like, it's so beautiful because, it's like my life has turned 180 since we first met, and I'm now leading people back into trusting themselves, right? Like, because I went through that journey, it's like, okay. And I have clients who, like, are so much in the, and it's not a surprise, right? Obviously, I'm drawing in people who have had similar experiences to me, but are very much in their head and wanting to get back. And I think the journey back to intuition and trusting yourself is really a journey back into the body.
Yes.
And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that because, you started your story talking about your ectopic pregnancy and how you went to Vegas to really heal and get back into your body. And I think this is a journey that a lot of people are probably on right now, especially in the changing circumstances of the world. People are realizing like healing needs to take a front seat because we are being bombarded with trauma all over the place. And so it's like, if we're not healing ourselves, then we're not going to make it. So it's like this journey back into the body. I would love, and really back to your wisdom, right? The intuition lives in the body. That's where your feeling sense comes from, right?
Right.
So what would you say for somebody, or what guidance would you have for somebody who is just starting that journey and realizing that they're really up in their head and that they need to get back into the feels and maybe heal something in the body, change their relationship to the body? What does that bring up in you?
First off, I would just say the only way that you're going to be able to start doing that is to just start believing it, and start doing it in real time. Like, don't be afraid to be wrong in your feels. Don't be afraid to say, oh, well, my intuition is saying this, but I'm thinking this, but I don't know. I'm going to just go with this because I think this is the best way. And I don't know this intuition. Just try it. Just say, I'm feeling like I should go this way, so I'm just going to go and do it. You just got to hop in. There is really nothing to do but to hop in and start doing it, noticing how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and just acting on it. Don't wait for something to make sense. I think that's the first thing for me, because half the time it won't make sense. A lot of things won't make sense, and you have to be okay with that. So just starting little, just starting. That's just it. There is no thing. And even if we go to the point of saying, a lot of times it's a, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. Oh, it's to read this manual. Oh, it's to read this book, or you can listen to this podcast, or you can do all of these things. But all of that stuff, I feel, gets to the point of really blocking you again. So you're hearing somebody else's talk. You're hearing somebody else's journey. That's why I said, too, like, you can hear my journey and hear what I do, but I'm not saying do what I do. In a sense, learn how to do what you do. That's more so what I'm saying. Right.
I'm so curious because so many, I think, will look at this situation and see it for what it is on the outside, right? Like, I'm not I don't have a home. I just have, I just got a job that's going to give me a $70 paycheck. Most people would look at that and live in so much fear.
Mm.
And yet you were able to move through that space in that period with a certain amount of faith and trust in life. And I'm curious, how did you get to that point where you could trust life in such a way that you were able to get through those moments, those dark moments?
Because honestly, I've had darker moments.
Mm.
So, for me, that wasn't the epitome of darkness. If anything, it felt like a light. It was showing me something that was different. It was giving me something to be excited by. So, because of a lot of things that I've gone through growing up, things that seem like challenges or like, oh, it's so hard, I kind of just be like, all right, let's just get it done. I guess that is a little bit of like the Black woman's gift and the curse, because you always got to feel like you're, keep it moving, and going. And a lot of stuff you don't really get to even process or recognize is even really happening. You just so used to going. So I recognize that's been a lesson as well too in that. But I don't even know if I even knew that I was doing that in the moment. It was just whatever option do I have? It's like I don't want that. I don't want back there. So all I can do is be here and see what happens with that. And then once it clicked, that's all it wrote, and then since then I've really been living what I call a spirit-led life, because even 5 years after that, Spirit told me, all right, time to shift. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what that means. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And that's when I ended up going to Morocco and coming to Senegal. And like, again, even coming to Senegal was a whole random as well too. That wasn't part of the plan. But again, it was like, exactly. It was like tickets make sense. Everything is lining up. Spirit said it's a go,
Here we have Carmela Cox, and she's an angel intuitive and manifestation guide. And I love this part of our conversation where we're talking about the fear of the unknown and how oftentimes as humans, we need the confirmation that something's going to work out in order to take that next step, and how that can actually be to our detriment. This beautiful dance that you get to do with your angels. And I love what you said about how, we just need to take that first step. And I can so relate to needing to know or wanting to see the whole picture before I take that first step. And so often that's what holds us back. That's what holds us back from making that big career transition of wanting to start our business or wanting to go down a new career path that we've never done before. It's like, well, if I can't see exactly how it's all playing out, I'm not going to do it. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that most people end up living lives that they were never meant to live, and it's such a missed opportunity, I think, for us as human beings, because in this society and the way that we've evolved, right? I get it. It's like we're wired for survival. And because we can't see what's happening in the unknown, we're afraid that that's going to, quote unquote, kill us or annihilate us in some way. And yet, what's being asked of us now is to step into that greater trust, right? And I think there's so many people right now that are waking up to the unseen realms, to understanding that there's more to life than just the physical reality that we can see with our five senses, which is why I wanted to launch this podcast and have people like you sharing your deep wisdom. What are, if you were to say, like the top 3 messages that the angels want us to know? Like, what is the themes that you keep seeing again and again? What are those 3 messages?
Yes. The first one is like, there's nothing for you to worry about. And that is a tricky one. That is the challenging one, because we worry about so many. We're like, how am I gonna have the money to pay for this? Or what career choice is next? Or I don't know if I should do this or this. And we get so caught up in our mind, and it literally just spins round and round. And then that's all we're thinking about. But angels just there's never anything to worry about, because they are there to help us and to show us. So that's the first thing. The other one is like, we're never alone. So even when you're going through something that you may think is really challenging and something like, I don't know how I'm going to make my way through, just always know you're supported and loved. So you're never going through anything alone. And then the third part is, I would say, part of that trust, it's just the message of like, you can fully surrender and trust me. Like, surrender it all, no matter how big or small. And there is no big and small at the universe. It's all the same. But anything what we perceive as big or small events, just see what would happen if I just released it and said, I'm going to let it go. You're instantly going to feel better. And then just say, okay, I'm going to trust my angels.
Love that. And I love how the trust and surrender really ties into the not worrying, right? Because those two go hand in hand. I find that anytime I am able to surrender and let go, it's like the worry dissipates immediately. Like, it's like, oh, I don't have to hold on to this worry because there's no point in doing that. Yeah, because it doesn't help us, the worrying doesn't, and in Ayurveda, we talk about how worry just immediately imbalances one of the main doshas, which is Vata. So it's like, it's not helping our mind-body system in any way. When you're ruminating on something, you're not coming up with new solutions. You're not able to act. Most of the time, you're actually kind of blocked from acting. And so it's like, yeah, why not trust and surrender? It's so much more beneficial. Last up, I'm speaking to Sahar, who is a sound artist and sitarist. And we're talking about the importance of patience on the spiritual journey. And I can't think of a better word, patience. That word has been a big learning curve for me in this lifetime. And I've come across this word and wrestled with it and fought it for some time to ultimately then get to the point and understand that I'm really here to learn about patience and what that is and how to embody it and how to trust in divine timing herself.
Patience, I think, is one of the most profound things that we can learn in a spiritual journey, because sometimes like you're just not ready to learn something, right? You're just not in the right mental space to take something on because of whether it's a physical thing going on in your life or if it's like just a situational thing, right? And, and I think all of that, it just kind of shows divine intervention, right? Like, I think God brought me back to Siddhar when I needed it. And that's why I was able to now just sit down and be like, okay, I need to take this seriously. And now I feel like, I'm going to do it again and again and again and again and again until I'm able to really lift my skills up to where I want them to be. And I mean, I'm going to be playing, I've been playing Siddhar for like 9 years now, and I still would not say that I'm an expert at all. Not even close. Like, not even close. But I got to be patient till I can get there and calm myself.
Wow. Well, that's the humility that you have. I think I was again bringing it back to shamanism. There are shamans who have been practicing and learning their whole lives and would not call themselves shamans, right? And it's like that humility aspect of it. Like, even though you've been playing this instrument for 9 years, it's like the depth of it. How deep it goes. And again, I think that's like the reverence of the practice and the instrument and of the culture around, right? What it means to be a master at sitar, or what it means to be a master shaman, or what it means to be a master Ayurvedic doctor, right? So there's so much there. And that I want to pick up on that theme of patience, because it's like, yes, that is what the spiritual journey, I feel like, is all about. I know from my experience, it's all a bit about patience of like, and even your journey with the pregnancy, it feels like, you were being a divine vessel to bring life into this world. So you didn't have space to do the other vessel work because your vessel was full already, like literally full. So God was like, okay, you got enough going on. Let's just pause this practice. It'll be there. And luckily, you listen to that. And I think that's such an important lesson for so many people out there, because we live in a culture and in a world that's like more, now, and we don't know when to stop.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know when to pause. We don't know when it's enough. Right? And it's like, I see this in the healing world as well. It's like one training after another. And I love learning. That's like, I will be a forever student, but I've learned that it's so important for us to take time to integrate things, right? To take those sacred pauses, those moments of reflection. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to continue on the path, but it does mean that, I've been on this path for this long. Let me take a pause and see, is this still in alignment with me? Well, I hope you enjoyed this compilation of the most powerful moments so far of the Wisdom Reclaimed podcast. Until next time.